Haven Call of the King is an action-adventure platformer that was developed by Traveller's Tales, published by Midway and released on the PS2 in November of 2002. It received mostly scores of 7 out of 10 at the time and was considered a decent game. Sadly, the game sold so poorly that the 2 sequels that the developer had planned ended up being cancelled as a result. The game opens in the fictional location of Virescent Village, a home to the slave colony that is forced to mine resources for the evil Vetch and his weird alien-looking army. Vetch is informed by one of his overlords that a young slave by the name of Haven has been having weird dreams about something known as the Golden Voice, and although Haven isn't exactly sure what these dreams mean, Vetch believes it's a cause for concern and sends a spy down to the village to find out more information. As Haven begins a normal day by clocking in for his latest shift in the mine, he sees one of his friends, named Chess, being questioned by a henchman, who wastes no time at all firing off a few rounds as soon as he spots Haven. This shooting causes a mass cave-in, and Haven is knocked unconscious and awakes to learn that the news of his friend Chess has been missing since the cave-in. Haven then begins a journey of searching for his lost friend, which also leads him to discover more about his strange dreams and how they could possibly save his people. The story isn't massively original, but it offers enough to keep you interested throughout. There are a couple of twists and turns at the end of the game, and with this game being the first part in a cancelled trilogy, it does end on a cliffhanger that sets up a sequel with potential, but we'll never get to see that game, which is a bit of a shame. If I'm being honest, when I found out I was going to have to review this game, I immediately rolled my eyes because I used to see this game in my local store when I was younger, but always ignored it because I assumed it was a cheap platformer that wasn't worth my time. This generation of consoles was home to a lot of great platformers and adventure games. Even if you're just talking about the PS2 alone, you had Ratchet & Clank, Jak and Daxter and Sly Cooper to choose from, so there was always going to be some games in this genre that didn't get as much of the spotlight as they should have. But Haven Call of the King has been one of the biggest gaming surprises for me in a long time. Now, although I described it as an action-adventure platformer, that description is slightly vague really, as this game borrows from so many genres that there isn't really a name to describe it. Primarily, it does offer you the standard platformer experience of working your way through levels, carefully traversing and climbing structures, smashing stuff up and picking up a wide variety of collectibles. At the same time though, there are moments where it plays in a first-person view, moments in speedboats, moments in spaceships, and some pretty impressive set pieces. The movement and jumping isn't quite as precise as you'd like it to be, but it does the job. You gain access to melee and ranged weapons that are useful, but not always effective. Your main attack is your mag ball, a weapon that I honestly can't explain what the hell it actually is, and even though to me it looks like Haven is repeatedly throwing a yo-yo at his enemies, it does take most of them down in a couple of hits, so I'm not complaining. You'll occasionally pick up items that allow you to use laser weapons for a brief period of time, and you also have an energy shield which runs on a meter but still comes in handy. This is all fairly standard stuff, but what this game does well is keep things moving at a nice pace and with a good amount of variety. It is almost mathematical how each platforming level is sandwiched between sections of big action in turrets or jetpacks, and I was constantly shocked at the number of styles of gameplay that I've got to see in this title, which is a huge positive in my opinion. Call of the King feels like it is focused on the action, as if it was made for people with a short attention span that drift off after doing the same thing for more than 15 minutes. And while Haven is a good game, its gameplay is far from perfect. There is a slight floatiness to the jumping that does prevent you from being as accurate as you'd like to be. Your main yo-yo weapon has a really short range, and sometimes you have to use it to destroy explosive items, but you have to get so close to hit them that you risk losing health. The game's camera is possibly the worst aspect of the game. Not only does it not quite turn with your movement, meaning you're constantly correcting your view, but the controls are also inverted, so left is right, up is down, and although I'm sure some people prefer it this way, it's something that I never really got used to, and there is no option to change this. Luckily for Haven, this game isn't too punishing, and the checkpoints are very frequent with no load times after a death, so none of these things frustrate you too much. I could say that the combat is sort of simplistic, but with the sheer variety of gameplay on offer, it's easy to see why they didn't spend a ton of time developing a long list of attacks. Haven's visuals, in my opinion, is where the game is weakest. The design of the world and its characters are creative, but the models themselves do lack that little bit of polish that could have gone a long way. I'm not saying the game looks bad. In motion everything looks fine, to be honest, but when you get up close with characters in cutscenes and really get a good look at the animation, you start to see a game that looks like it was made on a budget. Also, while we're on the subject of cosmetics, I literally have no idea what the deal is with Haven's hair. It sort of looks like cornrows or dreadlocks, but this world is so weird that he could just have 6 individual ponytails for all I know. Continuing the trend of being surprisingly good, the score that plays throughout the game is much more effective than I was expecting. It's clear that a lot of care went into this game's music, and its impact on the big action set pieces is definitely a bonus. What is a mixed bag, however, is the voice acting, which ranges from good Saturday morning cartoon to we just got some guy off the street.
What happened?
Rain down on us from above. It must be a sign. Fetch must be angry at us.
Actually, that was, me.
Haven Call of the King is a game I had really low expectations for. I expected a budget platformer with a generic plot and boring gameplay. Instead, what I found was an ambitious action-adventure game that has a few flaws, but is still genuinely impressive. The biggest shame about this game is that it could have led to a great sequel, and while this is part of an unfinished story, you shouldn't let that stop you from giving this a try.